What is going on, guys? This is Joey Boy bringing you my first video to do with the competitive side of 6th gen. Yay, it's finally here. So here we go. This is going to be the first team of the week for Pokemon X and Y OU. So it's going to be a little different though, just because first off, there's no real metagame. These are all beta features on Pokemon Showdown, so there still could be things that need to be worked out. And yeah, back to number one, there's not really a metagame with which you can kind of base building your team on. So at the moment, you're kind of just team building to what could potentially just be a good team, which is good. You know, that is something you should always be doing when building a team. But great teams are built while thinking about the metagame, while keeping the metagame in your head and building towards that. So since we can't do that, this will more be a kind of introduction into X and Y OU. Of course, there is not a ladder yet for X and Y OU. If you want to have games, you do just have to give manual challenges to people. I've done that a couple times with people with this team. They haven't been very good though, so I don't really have a clear picture of how good this team is, but just from looking at it, I would say it's pretty decent. This team will probably be something I'm working towards on my cart game. These will be the Pokemon I'm, breeding and EV training. Because even if the team isn't very good, a lot of these Pokemon will be Pokemon who will fit on good teams. So they'll be good to have ready for when I start building stronger and stronger teams. So let's get into the actual team. You can see from right here, my 6 Pokemon are Blaziken, Dragonite, Garchomp, Azumarill, Scizor, and Aegislash. I'm sure the first thing you guys noticed is I do have 2 Dragon-type Pokemon and 2 Steel-type Pokemon. So that is, again, it's still a remnant from other metagames. These 2 types I still think are going to be strong. Kind of my last Pokemon Showdown upload, I talked about how Dragon types are going to get nerfed due to the addition of Fairy type. And while it is true, don't expect them to drop off the face of the map. Because we haven't got a whole lot of really viable Fairy-type Pokemon. I would say the big Fairy-type Pokemon who are going to be threats in the metagame are the Pokemon who have had their types changed. A lot of the quote-unquote new Fairy-type Pokemon, the Pokemon who were not around on a Fairy-type, aren't terribly good. Sylveon is okay, but it's still not great for checking a lot of the physical dragons. So really, in my opinion, the 2 big Fairy types at the moment are Azumarill and Togekiss. And, those Pokemon will fall. The addition of Fairy type doesn't just automatically make them a full stop to Dragon type Pokemons, I guess is my main point. And you'll see why I have these 2 Pokemon when we get more into the actual team. But so, don't expect Dragon-type Pokemon just not to be around. You still definitely have to have ways to deal with them. Fairy-type just gave you a new way, and Fairy-type also did kind of kill Outrage. Just looking at this Dragonite set very quickly, it is the classic set, but I run Dragonclaw over Outrage, because you don't want to give something like Azumarill a free turn to maybe set up a sub, or let Togekiss set up Nasty Plot. So there are changes. Again, no Outrage on Garchomp. But let's get into the team. So, in my opinion, the first thing you should be thinking about when building a team in X and Y is the Mega Pokemon. For those who don't know, Mega Evolution is a new feature in Pokemon X and Y, where you can have one Pokemon that can Mega Evolve. Now, Mega Evolve, you can kind of think of it as a move like Swords Dance. You are setting up in a way, but the thing is that you can Mega Evolve and use another move in the same turn. And Mega Evolutions can do a lot more than just affect stats. They can affect Pokemon's typing or ability. Loads of different things. But the thing is you can only have one, so it kind of behooves you, in a way, to think about which one you're going to use first. This won't be the case all the time, but especially for an offensive team, it's probably a good idea to kind of build around a Mega Evolution in a way. I don't want to say that every team should be custom made for a Mega Evolution, but you should definitely have your team work well with the Mega Pokemon that you choose. So for this team, I decided on Mega Blaziken. When Blaziken Mega Evolves, it gains the Speed Boost ability, if it didn't already have it, and its stats get increased. Its speed goes to 100 base, its attack goes to 160 base, so it really just becomes a better version of Blaziken. It also becomes bulkier, which is actually quite a big deal, because it can take more hits, I guess. That's pretty obvious, but it's very important. So it kind of becomes Blaziken 2.0 in a way, which is pretty awesome. The thing is that due to breeding, there's been changes in how Pokemon can be bred. Blaziken can have Speed Boost and Baton Pass, and of course, it can have Speed Boost and Baton Pass regardless, thanks to breeding and Mega Evolution. So, Speed Boost Baton Pass Blaziken is known to be a huge threat because it was used in 5th Gen Dream World for a time before it was considered illegal and subsequently banned. So I knew it was a definite threat because Blaziken is such a big threat by itself, and if you come up against something that Blaziken can't handle, you can just pass all those boosts Blaziken has been accumulating to something else. So I thought that might be a cool idea for a focal point of this team. So in a way, this team is kind of built around Mega Blaziken. It's not necessarily built for Mega Blaziken to sweep, but it is built around the premise of the boosts Blaziken can give. Because as you can see, this team is actually all physical attackers. So, the reason I did that is because Blaziken, again, such a big threat. If it comes against something it can't handle, for example, Azumarill, maybe Gyarados, or a Dragonite with Multiscale, it can just pass out to another Pokemon, who can then abuse the speed and attack boosts Blaziken had built up. So looking at the set, it's pretty standard. Swords Dance, +2 attack, great, allows Blaziken to sweep or something else to sweep. 2 very strong stab moves for Blaziken, Flare Blitz and High Jump Kick. Not resisted by much, but there are a couple key ones. Again, the Dragon Flying type Pokemon, Gyarados, Jellicent, all those. So, of course, big thing is Baton Pass. I've said it before, I'll just reiterate, Baton Pass allows you to pass the boosts Blaziken has built to a different Pokemon. So, Mega Blaziken is pretty awesome. It can allow for some great sweeps, really. It really can, if not for itself, for another Pokemon. Moving on, we have Dragonite, and I guess I'll mention something now. On Scizor, let's do Scizor right now. Let's do Scizor next. So I picked Scizor because, first off, it's a great Pokemon, can revenge a lot of Pokemon, but it also has this very interesting move here called Defog. Now, if you've only ever played competitive Pokemon, you probably don't know what Defog does, or did. Defog was an HM, I believe, in Pokemon Black and White, or maybe it was just a TM, but it was a fairly useless move. It didn't really do anything, and it saw no use in competitive matches. Consider it like the Flash of the old games. You know, Defog was just used very briefly in-game to clear fog, but was never used competitively because it's no good. An interesting change has happened in 6th gen with Defog. When Defog is used, screens and all entry hazards are removed from both sides of the field. So, essentially, to put it, it is an unblockable rapid spin that hits both sides. Of course, this can be bad if you run a lot of entry hazards. You don't want to get rid of your own. It will remove, let's say you get down Stealth Rock on an opponent's side and you use Defog, your Stealth Rock will disappear. So in a way it's bad, but the good thing is, the good part of it is that it's an unblockable rapid spin. I suppose it can be stopped by taunt. No, I'm pretty sure it is an attack. I'll double check and I'll put it in the description whether or not it can be stopped by taunt. I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say. But it's not blocked by ghost types. There's no rapid spinner for Defog, which is very cool. It just means that entry hazards will play less important a part in the X and Y metagame, I would imagine, as long as a couple good Pokemon get Defog. Scizor, of course, is a great Pokemon. So, Scizor is on here because it can essentially have an unblockable rapid spin. It maintains great momentum with U-turn, just like in 5th gen. Really, Scizor is just as good as it was in 5th gen. Plus, Bullet Punch is super effective against fairy types. So, Bullet Punch really just got better. And it gained an unblockable rapid spin that also gets rid of screens. Of course, Scizor did get a bit of a nerf because it no longer resists Ghost and Dark, but I think these things really make up for it, and it's still a great Pokemon that we all knew and loved. So not a whole lot else to report on Scizor. Again, it's a great Dragon Resist. Steel is just as important a type in the X and Y metagame, if not more so, thanks to its ability to properly check fairy types. Very cool. Now, with this unblockable rapid spin, I thought it would be a pretty fun environment to, of course, abuse Dragonite, because we all know Multiscale Dragonite is a big threat, even with the addition of fairy types. So with an unblockable rapid spin, we can almost guarantee that Multiscale will be up when we use Dragonite if we want it up. And Multiscale Dragonite is, of course, a big threat who can set up on pretty much anything. Fairies can't necessarily just stop it right away. Of course, it can take any one fairy hit if it has Multiscale up, and of course it just won't be using Dragon Claw. Of course, the Pokemon Azumarill is still a pretty good. Dragonite is still checked pretty well by fairy types. I don't want to say that fairy types don't work against Dragonite. I just mean that Dragonite is still a great Pokemon, especially without Stealth Rocks on the field, regardless if the opponent has a fairy type. It's just another Pokemon you have to play around and remove for Dragonite to be at its best. The other thing is that this team kind of revolves around, well, it's a hyper-offensive team. It involves breaking down the opponent's Pokemon, so even if you can just weaken your opponent's fairies, maybe letting Garchomp or Blaziken sweep. But let's get back to Dragonite. Dragonite's still a great Pokemon. Not much has changed for Dragonite in this shift to X and Y. It really just lost a little in that fairy types are immune to Dragon and super effective on Dragon. But of course it did gain the unblockable rapid spin support, which is quite crucial considering Multiscale is such a huge part as to why Dragonite is as good as it is. And of course, Dragonite does have that very sexy +2 extreme speed priority, which just allows it to revenge a couple more threats that that your team might be having a problem with. So that's really Dragonite. Not a whole lot new, but it gained a boost in the unblockable rapid spin support of Defog. Moving on, we have Garchomp, again another Dragon type Pokemon. But the thing is Garchomp is just a really great Pokemon. It's hard not to use it, even with the addition of fairy types. Swords Dance Earthquake will still be hitting them hard. Of course, I will like to add Togekiss is a total hard counter to this Pokemon, as it is immune to both of Garchomp's stab attacks. But of course, Togekiss will be having to take 25% coming in on the Stealth Rocks with Garchomp, which Garchomp itself can set up. So, Garchomp is of course my Stealth Rock setter of choice. You may be thinking, well, Joey, you just talked about how there's an unblockable Rapid Spin. Why are you even bothering to run Stealth Rocks? And unblockable Rapid Spin does not mean that entry hazards and screens are all of a sudden unreliable. It just means they are less good than they were before. Stealth Rocks in particular is still a crucial part of any team, I would say. Just because of Defog's new ability does not make Stealth Rock any less important than it was before. Stealth Rock is still probably the most damage per turn the most damage divided by the least amount of setup. So what I mean by that is probably a bit confusing, but I mean that it only takes you a turn to set up Stealth Rocks, and it can potentially do a ton of damage to your opponent's team because it works on all of them. Of course, flying types still take 25% when they come in. It still removes Dragonite's Multiscale. It still takes off 50% from Pokemon like Charizard and Volcarona, and it's still doing that awesome chip damage to your opponent's team. So it's still very much worth setting up, and you should have a Pokemon with Stealth Rocks on your team. And I just find Garchomp to kind of be one of the best Stealth Rock setters in the game, especially for offensive teams. And you may be wondering maybe why I'm not using Terrakion, and it's because there are a few Pokemon in X and Y who you cannot legally obtain yet. A lot of those Pokemon are really just cover legendaries and legendary trios from past games. Example, Terrakion, Keldeo, Heatran. All those Pokemon we're going to have to get through Pokebank in December. So while that is the case, I'm going to kind of apply it to Pokemon Showdown as well. On Pokemon Showdown you can use all those Pokemon, but I kind of want to maintain the knowledge for what you can use in Cart while in Showdown. So Garchomp is kind of the #1 Stealth Rock setter in my opinion. Terrakion would give it a bit of a run for its money, but it's still very debatable. I would still probably take Garchomp, to be honest. So with all that said, Garchomp still a great Pokemon in the metagame. If your opponent doesn't have something like Skarmory or Togekiss, stuff is going to get hit really hard by Garchomp. It's still a really great Pokemon, and a great Pokemon to set up Stealth Rocks with. Moving on, we have the first Fairy-type Pokemon. We have Azumarill. For those who don't know, Azumarill got changed in the transition into X and Y, and is now a Water Fairy-type Pokemon, which gives it some very useful resistances, like a resistance to Fighting, Bug, Dark, and an immunity to Dragon. So Azumarill just got buffed this gen. Azumarill was still pretty good last gen, and it is only better now. The moveset is pretty standard. Waterfall, of course, Stab, Aqua Jet, Stab, Priority. Play Rough, which is a new Fairy type attack that has a 90 base power, has a small chance to lower your opponent's attack, and is Fairy type physical. So it's actually stronger than Waterfall when you don't take Splash Plate into account, and it maintains that super effective coverage on Pokemon like Fighting types and Dragon types. And of course we have Superpower here to hit any Steel types that want to come in and maybe take a resisted Play Rough. Splash Plate, I was considering using Choice Band, but I don't know, Choice Banded stuff just gives Pokemon free opportunities to set up, and I think the metagame, once it starts to kind of set itself, will be pretty offensive, and I don't really want to give Pokemon free turns. So I just went with Splash Plate. That could be changed around a little, I'm sure, but it seemed like a fairly solid choice. The EV spread is pretty standard again. 84 speed is just to outrun no speed Jellicents. But you know, which is nice, which is good. It's good to be able to outrun Jellicent, so you can maybe finish it off with a play rough. And of course, max attack and adamant to take the most of Azumarill's huge power, which doubles its attack stat. So this is essentially like 440 about, just off of that. So still very good, and the main reason I am using Azumarill is because it is such a great counter to Mega Blaziken. I can only imagine Mega Blaziken is going to be very popular because it is so hugely powerful, and Azumarill not only resists both of its stabs, considering Fairy resists fighting and Water resists fire, but it can also just ignore Mega Blaziken's speed boosts and take it out with a super effective Aqua Jet, excuse me. So Azumarill is kind of here to check Mega Blaziken, also a kind of secondary check to Dragon type Pokemon, and is really just overall a very solid choice. Gives great resistances, always nice to have a bulky water type on your team. Moving on, we did talk about Scizor, Defog, great, Bullet Punch, great for revenging, and U-turn to maintain momentum, and we move on to the only 6th gen Pokemon on my team. And we'll take a little bit of time to talk about this guy. This is Aegislash. He is a Ghost Steel type Pokemon. You can look at his base stats right here. They're all fairly average except for special defense and defense. But of course, if you're looking at his stat spread, you're thinking, why am I investing in HP and attack? So the reason for that is this ability called Stance Change. And what Stance Change does is it changes Aegislash's form when it uses certain moves. So looking at this moveset, Sword Stance, Sacred Sword, Shadow Sneak, and King's Shield, it is pretty offensive. So if Aegislash uses either Sacred Sword or Shadow Sneak, if it uses any offensive move, it changes into Aegislash Blade form. Bit of a lag there, excuse me. So you can see its appearance changes and its stats change. Essentially, the changes is that its defense and special defense switch with attack and special attack. So it has a defensive form and an offensive form. Now the very cool thing about this Pokemon is it can switch back and forth. King's Shield is like Protect, but its secondary effect is that if a physical attacker makes contact with Aegislash while it's using King's Shield, it gets a -2 attack. So that is awesome. That is just a crazy buff on Protect. Even if that was the only thing that it did, you essentially, you know, if someone, let's say Dragonite, or let's say Garchomp, uses, this is a poor example maybe, but Garchomp has +2 attack, and you bring in Aegislash and you use King's Shield, and for whatever reason, the Garchomp used Dragon Claw, and it made contact with King's Shield, that Sword Stance boost would be nullified. So very cool, very awesome move. Just Protect 3.0, much better than Protect. But the really cool thing with Aegislash and King's Shield is that when Aegislash uses King's Shield, it reverts back into the regular form. So there are some really cool plays you can do with this. You bring in Aegislash, it has phenomenal defenses and can check and take so many different moves, especially with the resistances afforded from a Steel Ghost type. It can then set up a Sword Stance while maintaining these defenses and, you know, absorbing hits. And then it can use Sacred Sword or Shadow Sneak Stance Change activates and it switches forms before the move is used, and you get to hit them with 150 base attack plus 2 from Sword Stance and these moves. And you get to hit them, and then you can just switch right back into the defensive stance with King Shield. It is very cool, and it allows for some very awesome plays. We'll be getting more into Aegislash in just a second. So there you go, that is the team. It's performed pretty well. I just had a couple games with random people on Pokemon Showdown, and I actually won them all. They didn't have totally awesome teams like mine, perhaps. But I will be getting the plan is I'm going to find a great game using this team on Showdown. I will post a replay of it and narrate that so you guys can kind of see how the team works. I will be beginning to build this team on my Pokemon Y so that I can get Wi-Fi battles that you guys can enjoy. And I will also be doing competitive analysis. I said last time that Greninja would be my first competitive analysis, and it still can be if you guys want to see it. But I think the first competitive analysis might have to be Aegislash because it is just really, really cool, and I think it lends itself well to being explained because it is quite confusing until you see footage of it being used. So there you go, that's the team, all-out physical offense. First Pokemon X and Y Team of the Week. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you will leave comments and likes, and I hope you subscribe to the channel because we're going to be having tons of more competitive X and Y videos now that I've beat Pokemon Y and can start breeding and EV training. And of course now Pokemon Showdown is continuing to test out these changes, and I think Pokemon Online is as well. So we will be delving into that more and more. And probably be doing some maybe some guides for competitive battling in X and Y as the metagame kind of takes shape and as players start finding new and interesting mechanics or cores. So there you go, that is the Team of the Week. Pretty awesome. I will leave an import in the description so you guys can test it out. Remember, there's no ladder for the 6th gen on Pokemon Showdown yet. You have to challenge someone manually. If you see me on Pokemon Showdown, feel free to throw me a challenge. We can duke it out in Pokemon X and Y. And of course, I will be getting more and more into Pokemon Y and the actual Wi-Fi battles. And I would love to have Wi-Fi battles with any subscribers that want to have a game or two. So if you guys want, I can leave my Pokemon Y friend code in the description as well. Leave a comment if you think that would be a cool idea. And there you go. A bit of a ramble there at the end of this episode, but I hope you enjoyed. It was very fun kind of getting into Pokemon X and Y OU, and I hope you'll join me for next time.